Hey guys, in this video I'm going to go over what the QuestMap Pro troubleshooting utility widget does and how you can use it to fix some problems. So if we jump into our scene here, actually let's open the widget first, let's not get ahead of things. So if we go into our content folder and then go to QuestMap, you're going to see here we've got the QuestMap Pro Troubleshooter. Now if you double click on this, it'll open up in the editor. That's not what you want. Close that one out. Instead, as the thumbnail suggests, right click and go Run Editor Utility Widget. It's going to give you this widget here. Now, it might spawn in very small. It's a scalable widget, so if you just put it wherever you want, size it to how big you want, then you're going to be able to use it. I'm going to leave it quite large here just for the purpose of the video, so it's a bit easier to see. Now, the widget here has several sections, as you can see, and they're all set up for different things. So we're going to go through one by one what they do. There will be timestamps in the description below and chapters on the video, so if you need to go to a specific one, then you're all set up. So let's start with the map helper. The map helper is an actor that you add during integration, and without it, QuestMap Pro does not work. It is used to calculate the size of your map by determining the northwest and southeast target points at the corners of your map. So if I, for instance, go to my northwest target point, actually I think we're using that one, and we go to top down, you're going to see that is, as the name would suggest, at the most northwest corner. And the southeast one is at the southeast corner. So that is used to determine our size by doing some maths between the two. And every time we need to work out a location, like let's say there's a waypoint right here, then it will use the world size and those points to determine that location and all the maths surrounding it. Let's just return to our map. Oh, that's a bit confusing. Map helper. So these are very important things to set up. Additionally, it's also used to capture your map and to determine whether you're using a single image or the tier zoom transitions. As it is very important, if you don't have these set up, things will not work right. So for instance, if you don't have one, QuestMap Pro, as I said before, will not work. If we jump into this widget and go to the map helper section, it'll tell us that there is not one there and we need it. So once you've got one, it'll go through and tell you. It'll even tell you if your target points is not set correctly, and it will tell you the world size. So this doesn't need to be selected. You can be anywhere and it will give you that information. Now, so it helps you determine whether you have one, whether you have too many, because if I add a second one in, it's going to... Oh, did that not get added? I don't think it did. I think I added a location. No? Why did that not? Okay, engine. It's going to tell us there's too many. So I'm just going to leave that for now. But obviously, if you have an error here, you know to fix that. If one of these come up red, then you'll know to fix that. If your world size says something that doesn't seem to match what your world is, then you know that these are probably in the wrong place. And finally, if it's telling you you're using tiered zoom transitions, but you only captured a single map image, then you know you need to come in here and play with these settings. Now, beyond that, we can also do some fixes here, but I actually leave that until we get to that section. So that's the map helper section. The next section we have here is the location manager. Now, the location manager is used to determine what locations your player knows about at the beginning of the game. So you can go through and add in as many locations here as you want. You can set them to be unknown, undiscovered, or discovered. And that way they'll show up on the map either as a question mark, a not filled in icon, or a filled in icon. Now, again, you don't necessarily need this one, but there are some things that will not work in QuestMap without it. So if you hit check status, it's going to tell you there's no location manager. If you have one, it's just going to tell you it's there and how many landmarks it's managing. So if it comes up that's managing 0 landmarks, but you want it to manage landmarks, then you can know, like you'll be able to see that straight away. You can go to the location manager and set it up. The next section is landmarks. Now, this is most likely the most useful section for a lot of developers, especially if you're in a world with a lot of locations or a large world with a lot of locations. If we go to a location, let's have a look at one that's got everything we need. Probably should have prepped this ahead of time. Yep, this one's got it. So this location is set up for the berry farm, and it has a navigation point as well as a travel spawn point. Now, the travel spawn point is this one here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to actually just jump into my location manager and we're going to add the berry farm as a known location quickly. berry farm, and we're going to set it to discovered. That'll allow us to fast travel to it. Because what this travel point does is it tells us, okay, when we fast travel, you need to spawn the player here, and they need to be looking that way, so they're looking at the house. Now, just here is the navigation point, which is just a target point. And what that does is when we place a waypoint down, it's going to place it there, and it's going to make the quest trail go there. So if we jump into the world, you'll be able to see those two in action. So you can see we've got the berry farm. For some reason it's not discovered. Let's have a look at our... Oh, we got an error. Interesting. Let's have a look at our location manager here. Berry farm should be discovered. Oh, I see. We've added the berry farm twice. That's why. My bad. Okay, let's delete the berry farm here and just change it from unknown to discovered here. I'll have to sort that out so that that automatically gets resolved. Let's hit play. Just open that up to enable fast travel. And now we've got the berry farm is discovered. If I hit fast travel, we're going to spawn at that exact spot where we were meant to. And the quest is actually going here as well. But if we set a landmark to there, you're going to see it's going to go over to that navigation point. Both the waypoint is there and the quest icon is there. So those two settings on each landmark are fairly important if you want to curate your experience. When we hit check on landmarks, it's going to tell us how many landmarks we have and if any of them are missing fast travel points or if they're missing navigation points. Now, you might not want navigation points on every single one. There might be instances where you're totally okay for it to go to the center of the landmark. However, you might also want to make sure that they do have it, and I would recommend having them on all of them, even if you just have them at the center of them. Similarly with the travel points, not every single landmark is going to need a travel point, but every single landmark that you can fast travel to is going to benefit from it, because if you do not have one, then the player is going to spawn at the original landmark. And if you have a landmark that's, say, down in a valley, you might actually have this underground, and that's going to cause some problems. So by going through here, we can hit add travel points. I'm just going to add another landmark in. World objects, landmark. So let's add a landmark here. And let's make sure it's set to be fast travel to. And so you can see that this one has no other actors. If we check, it's going to, they both just went up by one. We hit add travel points. It's added a travel point. Now it's going to use the navigation data to make sure it adds a travel point at a place the player can navigate to naturally. So if I just undo that, and oops, we had my, nope, there. So let's drag this over here. And you're going to see a bunch of this area the player can't actually navigate to. Now, there is some areas outside of the blocking bounds. So I might actually move that back in here just to make absolutely sure it's going to work out. Hopefully, there won't be any issues there. But if I do that again, there we go. We spawn all over here. And it's also spawned it facing the middle of the landmark. Now, it should have also added we can also add a navigation point, and that's similarly going to add it somewhere where it thinks it can navigate to. And it's going to also go through and name them automatically. So that landmark, I don't think actually had a name. It was called Landmark 2. But yeah, it hasn't got a name, so it's added a blank name for it, unfortunately. But it will give them a name based on their landmark. So you can see here, Red Forest Glade is another one I added. And that's named it correctly. So that is the landmark section. Again, like I said, it's going to be very useful for large open worlds. I'm just going to go through and undo all this so that I've got my demo level back to where it should be. There we go. Now, the other option here, we've got the option to use navigation, which is what I've just shown. You can disable it, and it will just use a line trace to make sure it's above the ground. The next section we have is points of interest. That's pretty straightforward. It just tells you how many points of interest you have in your world. It's just useful for your own knowledge. Similarly, the hidden actors counter just tells you how many of them there are. Now, the final section is the invalid actors. And we're going to go through here. It's going to check, and it's going to tell us we have multiple map helpers, which is what we were seeing before. Now, each one of these, if it locates an issue, is going to give you the option to fix it. For map helpers, this could be a little problematic because, as you can see, we've already set this one up, and there's a bunch of data. There's over 250 images in this array here. So it'd be frustrating to hit fix and have that be deleted and lose all that. Obviously, if you are comfortable going through these, you can use this number to go, okay, I need to remove one map helper, go through your scene, find the map helper and delete it. However, if you do hit fix, what the system will do is it will go through, it will look for one that has 2 target points, a world size, and if you do have tiered zoom transitions enabled, it will also look for this array to be full, and it will delete the ones that do not have that. So if we hit fix, it's deleted the other one. Same with the location manager. If you find multiple, it'll go through, look for one that has locations set up on it, and delete the others. Now, rogue travel points. If you were to add a travel point into your scene, which is this actor we just used for fast travel, and it's not set up to actually be used, that's a rogue travel point. It'll just remove it. These last 4, character helper, navigation helper, quest actors, and waypoint actors, none of these should actually be added into your scene. They're added by the system at runtime. So if it finds any of them, it's going to remove them. And that's really everything it does. So it's a pretty useful tool. I've got some ideas on how to maybe expand it in the future, but that's where we're at now. If you have any suggestions about it, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching and enjoy working with the system.